All right, I'd like to call this Cleveland Heights City Council meeting to order. It is Tuesday, September 2nd at 7:40. Addie, would you please call the roll?
Posh.
Here.
Maddox.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Petrus.
Here.
Russell. Kuda.
Here.
Cobb.
Here.
All right, very good. Any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none. Do we all approve of the minutes that we got, the July 7th, 2025 minutes? All right, we're all good there. Communications from the mayor, we cannot do right at this moment. We're actually not going to do, I'm going to make a little adjustment here. We're not going to do a departmental report, but so just skipping down, we do have a report from the clerk of council.
I do. Just to report that I've received the following notices from the Division of Liquor Control. The first is a transfer of ownership of a D1, D2, D3 liquor permit from Boiling Seafood LLC located at 2201 Lee Road to Lee Seafood Boil Lee Road LLC at the same address. The second is for a transfer of ownership of a D5 liquor permit from LA Serena LLC located at 2200 South Taylor Road to Dream Spot Inc. at the same address. The final is a transfer of ownership of a D1, D2, D3 liquor permit from La Serena LLC located at 2190 South Taylor Road to Dream Spot Inc. at the same address. These matters have been referred to the mayor and chief of police.
All right, Addie, would you text the mayor, please? And because the next thing on the agenda, if we skip over a bunch of stuff, is would be public comment, and we want to give the mayor and actually the law director as well an opportunity. Mayor, whenever you're ready, it's time for your report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seeing as this is potentially the last regular council meeting that I will attend as mayor, I'm sure I've considered, providing some sort of statement that would match the, significance of that. But I don't know, experiencing the meeting immediately preceding this one, it was simultaneously so disappointing, but also so emblematic of what Cleveland Heights government has become, that I think anything that I would have said is just gone. And so with that, council will do what it does. And I thank you for providing the time on the agenda for some sort of commentary from me, perhaps in the discussion of various legislative items that are before you. I might try to offer some insight, but I think that we should just move along with the show.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Departmental reports, is it my understanding the law director has a report?
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you.
The mayor had requested sort of an overview of pending litigation in which the city is involved. And so because this is a public session discussion, the level of detail is going to be very reduced, but I can walk through this, I think, in just a few minutes. The first case is the Crossroads Group LLC versus the City of Cleveland Heights. This is pending in the Northern District of Ohio Federal District Court. It is a class action filed by people who own rental homes in Cleveland Heights but don't live within Cleveland Heights. And they're challenging the $100 registration fee for out-of-county landlords. It's been fully briefed. There are cross motions for summary judgment by the plaintiffs in the city, which have been fully briefed, submitted to the court since January of this year, but no decision has been issued yet. Dennis Birchall who is the executor of the estate of Curtis Lee Birchall, deceased, versus the Cleveland Heights Police Department et al. This is a case involving a death that occurred on Interstate 90 when a stolen vehicle hit Dr. Birchall's vehicle head on at high speed. It was an Amazon truck stolen at gunpoint by a felon who attempted to evade police by going the wrong way on the highway. This is in common pleas court and essentially involves a question of whether the actions of the police department were reasonable under the circumstances and in line with the police pursuit policy. Discovery has been completed and depositions have been taken. Motions for summary judgment in this case are to be filed by October 15th. Leslie Carroll versus the Cleveland Heights Building Department. This is in the Northern District of Ohio Federal Court. Pardon me. Plaintiff brought this lawsuit under the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, alleging she was discriminated on the basis of her age. She claims that the city failed to hire her and that she was terminated. In August of last year, an offer of employment was rescinded due to an unforeseen external conflict, which involved the city being obligated to pay an employment agency a significant amount of money to hire the plaintiff at that time. After she was released from obligations to that agency, another opening became available. She didn't respond to requests for a second interview. The position was offered to somebody else, and this lawsuit followed. Kimberly Bolton versus the City of Cleveland Heights et al. This is a complaint filed in the a charge filed in the Ohio Civil Rights Commission, alleging race, sex, and disability discrimination in violation of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and Ohio law, but does not allege wrongdoing against the city or its employees. Rather, this involves the Cleveland Heights Municipal Court. Essentially, she claims that she was improperly terminated and that she was denied reasonable accommodations under the ADA by the court, by the Cleveland Heights Municipal Court. The city has submitted a position statement because the city was named. Patrick Costigan versus the City of Cleveland Heights et al. Mr. Costigan suggests that he was subjected to a hostile work environment or a discriminatory atmosphere. Position statement to EEOC was filed on June 16th of this year. There is a related state court case in which he purports to assert a hostile work environment claim and an aiding and abetting claim against a third party, claims for injunctive relief demanding that the city institute policies to safeguard against discrimination, to certify that non-employees are not permitted to conduct official city business, and to ensure that no retaliation occurs against individuals who take part in protected activities. He has not demanded monetary relief in that complaint. The city filed its answer. A case management conference is scheduled for September 8th of 2025. Callie Itzen versus the City of Cleveland Heights. This is pending in federal district court. The plaintiff had a neighbor dispute that ended up in a scuffle. Police were called. Both participants were arrested for disorderly conduct. Some of the plaintiff's possessions were taken into custody by the CHPD. Plaintiff claims he was issued citations for menacing and disorderly conduct. The complaint alleges that these charges were dismissed, as well as a speeding ticket. He's asserting a claim for malicious prosecution, abusive process, and violation of constitutional rights. Basis for the claims is not fully clear in the complaint. There are also some state-based claims related to public records involving body cam footage that he alleges, never produced. The court made a finding that all relevant documents and video footage has been produced. A motion for summary judgment was filed on the basis of qualified immunity on behalf of the city and on the basis that no constitutional rights were violated. Plaintiff also filed a motion for summary judgment. The plaintiff's motion was denied. Judgment on the city's motion is still pending. Corey Schaefer, Peggy Gallick, Gary Cantor versus the City of Cleveland Heights. 3 separate cases in the Court of Claims involving a public records request by Gary Cantor. Subject of the request is the body worn camera of an officer who was in a security position outside the mayor's office. This was in December of last year. The Court of Claims, after an attempt at mediation, briefing by the parties, ruled in favor of the requesters on August 15th. There is an appeal period and a production period of 30 days from the date the order becomes final to produce the records. Gary Cantor filed another claim in the Court of Claims with regard to is seeking records related to an agreement between the city of Cleveland Heights and the firm Burgess & Burgess. The city produced the records that were requested, and today, Mr. Cantor filed a notice of voluntary dismissal of that claim. Robert Kehoe versus Cleveland Heights. This is in Cuyahoga County Common Pleas initially, and was then appealed to the 8th District Court of Appeals. This case involves two separate administrative appeals stemming from the same project and a declaratory judgment action also related to that project. The first was an appeal of the BZA. The second was from the ABR. The landowner undertaking the project applied for 2 variances to develop a space above their garage. The petitioners in the actions were his neighbors, who opposed the granting of the 2 variances by the zoning board, and a finding by the ABR that the proposed renovations were approvable. The action was filed in late December after prior efforts to resolve it failed. Eventually, the parties on the defendant side, the landowner and the city, separately filed motions to dismiss. I think the landowner did, I know the city did. And on the basis of mootness, because work had already begun and substantial work had been completed. And the Common Pleas Court dismissed the case. It was appealed to the 8th District, as I mentioned, and the dismissal decision was affirmed by the Court of Appeals. Demetrius Kern versus the City of Cleveland Heights. This is in federal district court as well, Northern District of Ohio. The plaintiff alleges the use of excessive force after he pulled to the side of the road and interjected himself into a police officer's investigation of a different motorist. The officer advised him to desist and to step back and called a supervisor for assistance. Supervisor came to the scene, and ultimately, after the plaintiff refused to provide identification, he was arrested and alleged the use of excessive force in that arrest. Motions for summary judgment have been filed by both parties and continue to be pending. Charity Nelson versus the City of Cleveland Heights, Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas case filed on May 27th of this year. This arises out of an automobile accident that occurred on May 27th, 2023, after a Cleveland Heights police officer called off a high-speed pursuit, but an accident resulted, and the driver of the car, Khalil Johnson, was traveling at a very high rate of speed through an intersection. The allegation is that that was solely as a result of having been previously pursued by the CHPD officer. City has filed an answer and a cross claim against Mr. Johnson. Case management conference has been scheduled and discovery is underway. Erlene Robinson versus the City of Cleveland Heights, also in Common Pleas Court. The result of a charge of discrimination that was a dual filing with EEOC and OCRC, Ohio Civil Rights Commission and Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Plaintiff was issued a right to sue letter December 6, 2023, and the court complaint was filed on March 10th. Plaintiff asserts that she was disciplined on around that same time she was reprimanded for policy violations within the department, claims the reprimand was retaliatory because she had been complaining that she was underpaid and paid less than others based upon race, gender, and age. City has filed an answer, case management conference scheduled, discovery is underway. Gerald Andre Spencer versus the City of Cleveland Heights. Mr. Spencer initially filed a complaint on May 4th, 2023, claiming that he had been discriminated against and terminated on the basis of age and race. He was actually terminated for violations of city policy, violations of the nepotism policy, and essentially steering contracts to a company owned by a relative. He had been previously disciplined for that conduct. Written discovery was conducted. A motion for summary judgment was filed by the city, but then the plaintiff 41A dismissed the case, which means they get one free dismissal. And then if they try to do that again, it operates as a dismissal with prejudice. A 41A dismissal does allow a refiling, and the case was refiled on January 10th of this year. City is talking with plaintiff's counsel to schedule depositions. David Weiner versus the City of Cleveland Heights, Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas. It also was briefly in the 8th District Court of Appeals. The plaintiff filed a complaint on September 9th of 2024, claiming that he fell on September 8th, 2022, due to a defect in the sidewalk and patio at Luna Bakery. which is owned in a building owned by Heights Medical Building, both of which are co-defendants of the city. Luna has an outdoor dining permit from the city to use the patio. The location at which plaintiff fell involves a drop from the sidewalk that leads onto the patio about a foot lower, but it's not an entrance to the patio, and there's a raised curb. The plaintiff tripped or fell over that curb and was injured. The case initially got on sort of a rocket docket, and the city sought leave to file a motion for summary judgment on the basis of of statutory immunity under Chapter 2744. That motion was denied by the court. The city took an immediate interlocutory appeal to the 8th District Court of Appeals. The 8th District said that the city was entitled to seek leave and to file such a motion, making those arguments in the Common Pleas Court, and remanded the case to the Common Pleas Court. When it was remanded, the judge who had previously presided over the case recused herself, and a new judge has been assigned as of last week, but no further scheduling has occurred. And then I don't have details on this. There's a case, a personal injury claim filed in Cleveland Heights Municipal Court, Small Claims Division. There's a pending motion to transfer it to the regular docket filed last Friday. And then there are some tax foreclosure claims as well. So that's the brief overview. I would not want to entertain a lot of questions, again, because of the public nature of this discussion, but for the benefit of council and the public, the mayor thought this should be understood and reviewed. So
you're pretty busy.
A lot of these cases are being handled by insurance-appointed defense counsel.
Oh.
So PEP has been very helpful in terms of assigning counsel. They're very familiar with public entity law. They're very familiar with the city of Cleveland Heights at this point, and they're very helpful to us.
And if anybody wanted to do a public records request on any of those cases, they probably wouldn't get much more than what you just said, or you tell me.
I mean, there's not much in terms of public records that wouldn't be sort of attorney work product. What there is, though, is a docket in the courts for each of these cases that are in court. So Common Pleas Court, 8th District Court of Appeals, or the Federal District Court all have online document access, and all the documents filed in the case are accessible unless they're like under seal. Cases that have been, charges that have been filed with the Ohio Civil Rights Commission or the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission are not accessible in the same way, but those wouldn't be available through the city either.
Well, thank you very much for that information. We're going to move on now to public comment. First, legislative items only.
Melody Joy Hart.
As you know, 3 minutes, and you state your name and street you live on.
Melody Joy Hart, Monmouth Road. I want to speak regarding the charter amendment. It's fascinating to me that even though on council there are members of the CEM, that council is pushed to put back the power structure of the city manager form of government, concentrating power at council. There are parts of the charter amendment that seem fine to me. The Charter Review Commission did a pretty good job, but council also made changes. Some of the things that they added have some serious implications. For instance, one of the provisions requires council to vote on hiring of directors and also firing of directors. That's ridiculous. A person who is the mayor should be allowed to hire and fire their own people. And council already has the ability for, I believe it's law director, finance director, and administrative to have approval for hiring. They don't require all that from a city manager. All the things they're asking for a mayor, they don't require the city manager when they had it. So I think people need to read all these provisions. And since it just became final, you had many meetings before, but now that it's final, people need to relook at it. And because there are issues with the power structure taking the checks and balances away by concentrating power at council and making the mayor an irrelevant elected position. This needs more public scrutiny of these recent changes, so moving it to the May election and holding forums and hearings so that people are well informed about how they would like to vote seems more appropriate. Also, that would allow council to actually spend the time doing something that is truly important, which is passing the Park Synagogue financing. It's a good project. Most cities would love to work with them, and it needs to get done. Putting it aside when they've got a deadline to meet only makes it that we're less accommodative to developers and makes people not want to come and develop with us. So that, I think, is where time should be put. And thank you, by the way, for doing the 46 vacant lots for Future Heights. I appreciate that. And one last thing, since I do have 39 seconds, I encourage people to vote no for the recall. I encourage that because we don't need a temporary person in for what, 2.5, 3 months. It would be on the 26th of September. Leave it be. The mayor's going to be out. You don't need to mess up things any worse. Just let it fly by and his time pass, and then you have a new mayor. And plus, he also said he would help train the person, have them do budget with him, and that type of thing. So I think that having that transition period is important. Thank you very much.
Linda Strayevsky.
Good evening. It's good to see you all again. I just want to make a couple comments with respect to the charter. My name is Linda Strayevsky. I live at 2222 Delamere. I was the chair of the Charter Review Commission that worked in 2022 and 2023 and 2024. I am speaking tonight solely for myself. I do support council's proposed charter, including the changes that were made most recently. The Charter Review Commission on which I served was appointed by City Council in recognition that the 2019 ballot measure for an elected mayor left work undone. The job of the Charter Review Commission was to recommend changes to finish the charter, changes that are needed for a mayor-council form of government, and to modernize the charter. The 9 Charter Review Commission members met for a year with many meetings, live streamed and recorded. We also had 2 meetings specifically for public input and made changes based on public input. The commission issued a report and charter amendments in May of last year. Most of council then spent the time until June of this year reviewing the draft and deliberating on changes. The law department then prepared the council draft to reflect those deliberations. The proposed charter does put into effect changes needed for a well-functioning executive and legislative branch. It balances the powers. I do disagree with Ms. Hart's comment that it concentrates power in City Council. I do not believe it does that. It is balancing the powers between the executive and legislative branches. I think that the draft that council has before it tonight reflects deliberation and consideration of input from public changes, from the public, and changes were made based on that input, which is a good thing. That's why we have public input. It's been 6 years since the elected mayor ballot issue. I encourage voters to support the amended charter so we can move forward with an improved charter that will more fully implement the 2019 ballot issue by balancing out the powers of the executive and legislative branches. Thank you very much.
Geraldine Davis.
Good evening. I have on page 4, Article 3, Section 12. The last sentence says, council believes that this recommendation of the Charter Review Commission as modified by the council is consistent with the practice of the overwhelming majority of other cities in the area and throughout the state. I believe we should have, if it's the former Charter Review Commission, or is it a current, or what year, as it was stated earlier, that needs to be part of this sentence. I think that was stated on Friday also.
Question of clarification, you're talking about the summary?
Yes, the summary,
Okay.
yes. Okay, my next comment is on page 4, Article 4, under the section legislative power. It's a sentence that says, let me get to the beginning. retains the mayor's ability to introduce legislation and council, and protects against unreasonable delay or refusal to do so by council, provides the council president may invite the mayor to participate in executive sessions of council, but provides for the possibility that the mayor not participate when not appropriate. I think it needs to be an explanation of what's considered not appropriate. Okay, the next one is Article, page 5, administrative officers and departments. And it states that departments, section 1, departments revised to provide that the council rather than the mayor determines the functions and duties of each department and may create new positions or department. Council believes this is the predominant practice in Ohio cities and adds human resources to the list of charter-created city departments. I'm accustomed to departments developing their own job descriptions and then it's submitted to HR to look over and to approve. I ask that be considered. And then on page 6, at the top of the page, well, it starts on page 5's nominations and election revised to specify the number of signatures required on petitions to qualify as a candidate for council or mayor, 225 for council and 300 for mayor. I was wondering what was the current numbers that were used in the last.
It was a percentage.
It was a percentage and not numbers, okay.
No.
All right, and then lastly, on page 5, okay, that's all of mine. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
You bet.
Lee Barbie.
I'm able to walk today. My name is Lee Barbie, and I'm a resident of 1048 Hereford Road. I'm here today because I'm a concerned citizen. I have attended the last 2 readings of the charter amendment, and this is, to me, it's kind of, I don't know where we're at right now. Are we on our 3rd reading? Are we on our 2nd reading? It's, to the average voter, this is confusing. The current council president, whom in the political science community is considered as a true Machiavellian to our city government. We have seen the reverse of government from a city manager style to a strong manager style, now back to a city council strong style. With the mayor will be serving as in a ceremonial role. In a matter of a week, Cleveland Heights may transfer the keys of power to the president of council, who will be the acting mayor. Citizens need to be aware of what will he do as the acting mayor in this short period of time. There's an enormous amount of power he has with the current role and the current amendment that's in place right now. What will council do with the acting mayor? What can they do? I'll be watching every single step. But what about the other council members? I've only heard from 2 council members as to any suggestions of change. I've heard, where are the others in their voices? Do they have voices? Are they expressing their opinions? Because the citizens have not heard that. We as citizens need to stop this charter amendment. It's too complex for the average voter. Not saying the more educated voter who goes line by line, but I'm just merely talking about the average voter who does not come to the meetings every week, who has a job and works 12 hours days, takes care of a family, raises kids, takes care of their grandmother. They don't have time to go through each line by line and read all the corrections. When they see all of this stuff on a ballot, all of these amendment changes, it's mind-blowing. It's truly mind-blowing. I spent my career as an Army officer. I was always taught that a good officer makes training so simple and so to the point where where a soldier can have confidence and say and do their job in their sleep. So I am opposed to this measure.
Lee Chilcote?
Good evening. I'm Lee Chilcote. I live at 2322 Delamere Drive, and I'm here to talk in favor of the charter amendments as presented tonight. Believe it or not, I actually served on the Charter Review Commission, the one that's referred to as the old commission in the 1980s. So I come here with some background in this. What I want to first say is that this is not rushed, as people have alleged. This process has gone on since 2019, is long overdue. I've watched the videos of the commission meetings, of the council meetings. I've been here from the latter part of this Charter Review Commission, and the amount of care and concern by council and by its staff is incredible. It's been very carefully handled. Ms. Strejewski, who ran the commission, has done a stellar job in all of this. But the idea that it's rushed is a falsehood. Number two, the public has a full chance, and I would encourage you, and I know you will do it, to review it. The difference between this and allegedly rushed legislation is that the voters can vote on this matter, and we have, in the same amount of time that is given on every matter that goes to the voters in Cuyahoga County, we have the same amount of time, and if we use that time, anybody who does not understand the complexity of this will be given the chance to do so. So I totally reject the idea that this is rushed or that people do not have an opportunity to determine whether they'll vote in favor of it. They have an absolute opportunity. The most important thing is, I come back to, is the care and concern that was used by the staff. I've listened carefully to Mr. Hanna and his staff and his review of some 20, 30, I don't know how many communities, and the constant comment that these communities have that same provision. That's the assurance that the voters get and need here, because the voters will know that the council is truly balancing the mayoral form of government. It's just unfortunate that the single subject rule prevented you from doing this before. So I applaud you and I thank you and I congratulate council on its hard work as well as the staff. Thank you.
That's all we have for legislative items. All right. Moving on to general, Tom Hudak.
Tom Hudak, Bradford Road. I come to apologize for the way a majority of this council and some of our citizenry have treated Mayor Khalil Sarin and his wife, Natalie McDaniel. Mayor Sarin came to us with greater experience and education than anyone running for mayor then or now. And he accomplished much. He reestablished our city's own housing inspection, championed the developments at Taylor Tudor, Cedar Lee Meadowbrook, and Nobility Court, oversaw renovations at Kane Park, and much more. So it was distressing when Tony Kuta's council stripped the mayor of his right to appoint members to citizen committees. And after doing so, Mr. Kuta shamelessly appointed Sarin's 3 picks for one of those committees. It was appalling to see council's behavior during the budget process. Mayor Sarin was without a finance director and a city administrator, and this council sought to blame him for those vacancies, even though they knew this city hall had a revolving door well before Mayor Sarin took office. and there were no disagreements of substance. Council simply sought to demonstrate their control. It was astonishing to see some in our community rush to condemn Mayor Sarin for texts he never wrote or sent. He clearly stated those texts do not represent who he and his wife are. Yet our council called a special meeting because fanning the flames served their own interests. And it was disappointing how some in this city who otherwise think of themselves as feminist champions instead looked the other way as the mayor's wife became a target of abuse. On media old and new, those leading this recall effort have orchestrated a campaign of moral cowardice using online gossip, half-truths, and hate. Appropriately, their recall signs are a cowardly yellow. Make no mistake, this recall is disgusting. Will you be proud of your vote on the recall or remorseful? Be proud, vote against this recall.
Bob Ivory.
Good evening. Council President Kuda, distinguished council members, Mayor Sarin. I just wanted to stand before you and formally, on behalf of Students of Promise, I wanted to extend my deepest gratitude for your generous award of $100,000 in support of the Prentice Place Transitional Living Facility for women and children. We are truly honored by your confidence in our mission and encouraged by your commitment of advancing opportunities for the most vulnerable members in our community. Your investment is more than a grant, it is a lifeline. With your support, we will be able to provide safe and stable housing, educational programming, life skill training, and comprehensive wraparound services for homeless women and children. These resources are not only essential in addressing immediate needs, but they will also help foster long-term empowerment, self-sufficiency, and academic success. Together, we are hoping to break cycles of poverty, reduce homelessness, and close the achievement gap for youth in our neighborhoods. We are deeply grateful for the Cleveland Heights City Council, the administration, Council Vice President Vita Russell for sponsoring the legislation in this work. Your belief in our efforts allows us to meet families where they are, walk alongside them in their journeys, and build pathways of hope and opportunities that change lives. So thank you for standing with us and making such a meaningful difference. We look forward to sharing the impact of your generosity as we continue this important work together. Again, thank you.
Susan Ephraimson.
Susan Ephraimson, 3825 Severn. You've heard people tell you that the reason for the recall are some text messages that didn't, or statements that didn't even involve the mayor himself. Would 4,400 people have signed to recall the mayor, while the mayor himself couldn't get 350 valid signatures to get on the ballot if the reasons were simply that? This is about his own governance. It's about the fear in City Hall and actual reports of people saying they felt unsafe. It's about all those some of which you've heard in those lawsuits that were detailed. It's about how many empty offices there are, including his inability to keep a city administrator, which is required by charter. It's about the scandal after scandal, the misinformation that, as if he hadn't even read the charter amendment, posted on city resources. It's about press conferences in city resources in defense of his wife. It's about listening devices that were allegedly in the law department and how people are afraid to speak freely in City Hall. It's about words that mean one thing one day, but then the opposite the next. It's about his usurping of council's responsibility and need of inquiry by disallowing them to speak to and get information directly from department heads. The name calling, the race baiting, the victim blaming, and all of that are certainly unseemly. But he promoted his wife's friend and with a raise while letting go popular people who have been with the city for a long time. How did we get from being flush with ARPA dollars to Moody's removing our credit rating? And how many untimely filings have put us in peril? And how many, and those grant applications that just went unfiled, the late pool opening, or the fact that we didn't have lifeguards because what, we couldn't call and work with the school board? So the will of the people have spoken, they signed, and laughably, he tried to veto the recall. And he did it late. If this is, these are among the reasons that I ask you to join us in voting for the recall. We need to be able to hire and begin to repair for the city, and we need to start soon. Thank you.
Jose Quiles?
So I am not normally an angry person, and I want to take a second to apologize for what I'm about to say. I don't think I'm gonna make some friends tonight. I also have a lot to get through, so I'm gonna try to go as quickly as I can. As of Monday, August 25th, I now own 2857 Noble Road. I should be thrilled. June 1st, I get a letter from the service department that says I cannot park in that parking lot the way that we've been parking. I start questioning, why is that the case? And I come to a very weird realization. I own part of that parking lot. Why is this an issue? I start trying to have a conversation with the city about what that means. Let's be serious about what happens next. The moment that I asserted that I have the right to park in that space because I own part of the property, the whole situation changes. All of a sudden, the city has a massive obligation to protect itself from my clients. All of a sudden, that space becomes the most valuable real estate in Cleveland Heights. Essential for the day-to-day requirements that the city needs for storage, of all things, and a liability concern that's so goddamn critical that requires my business to starve. When this property was expanded in 2001, it was clearly done with the intent to create parking for that business. The reality is that the service department never gave up access to the parking lot, and now they're fighting like hell to prevent that property from being utilized the way it was designed. I can absolutely see why Rick Hollis was so angry with the city. This is malicious, this is retaliatory, and I don't understand why it's even happening. The initial excuse is that we had no right to the space. Turns out we own part of the space. The second excuse was storage. That's a lie. The city can store that material anywhere else. I don't have to starve. The last excuse, which seems to have some teeth, is liability. I come today with a proposal. If liability is the concern, I have a solution. First, I get the city of Cleveland Heights a copy of my insurance policy. I maximize my own liability limits, and I include the city of Cleveland Heights as an additional named insured on my policy. That means that my policy will act as a blanket for you guys. Next, I get a $10 million umbrella policy on top of that, because why the fuck not at this point? And last, I give the city $10,000 that I really can't afford to put in an escrow account in case there is an accident, so there's money there to repair the damage. Now I'm gonna say something controversial. I have no clue why this service department has the kind of sway that they do. They're lying about the situation. Everyone knows that parking lot is basically a ghost town. They're lying about the risk associated with my clients pulling in and out of that parking lot. They're lying about the near collisions. It hasn't happened yet. It's not going to happen anytime soon. They're using the liability question maliciously with the intent to stop me from accessing the space that we own. That's what's happening here. They are lying, and they're supposed to be my friends. They're supposed to be my neighbors. It is incredibly important to me. I know. It's incredibly important to me to have good relationships with the people I have to see every single day. Give us the space that we need to do our job. I've done enough for the city. We don't deserve this. Stop making excuses and let me do the good work that we're here to do. Because again, we ain't surviving this. Come winter, we will have no parking. All of the solutions that have been proposed do not include space to push the snow anywhere. We are not surviving this.
Barbara Sosnowski.
Good evening, Mayor, Law Director, Council. My name is Barbara Sosnowski, and I live on Northampton Road. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts with you this evening. I've recently learned about the work of Cleveland Heights for Immigrant Rights last council meeting, and I'm here tonight to share how important it is to me that Cleveland Heights City Council enact their proposal legislation to ensure immigrants at risk of detention or deportation the access they need to legal representation. The U.S. Constitution promises all people of the United States the right to due process, and most people charged with a crime have access either to private attorney or an attorney appointed through legal aid. But unfortunately, this is not the case for immigrants, as the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland does not have enough attorneys to take on additional immigration cases. Cleveland Heights says that all are welcome. And we need to be sure that immigrant residents are both welcome and protected. ICE, as we already know, has been detaining people in Cleveland Heights since January, and we have many residents who are at risk of detention right now. Many of them, perhaps most, would win their cases and be allowed to continue living among us if they had that access to lawyers. And it is the access to a lawyer that makes it 10 times more likely that they will win their cases. Without a lawyer, our immigrant neighbors face the loss of their home, their connections, their family, friends, and neighbors, and the loss of their employment. Some, it puts their very lives at risk if they are deported. The immigrants face detention, which is itself a traumatic ordeal. Arrests have become increasingly physical and violent, and imprisonment is itself a traumatic experience. Please use the emergency measures to pass this legislation as quickly as possible. Protect our immigrant neighbors and show them that Cleveland Heights is truly a place where all are welcome. Thank you for listening.
Very well said.
Lou Radovojevich.
Lou Radovojevich, Middlehurst Road. I think I've spoken my mind Friday night, so I'm good with that. I think what we adjusted Friday night and the conversations we had and what Len had brought to the table, and Gail, I really appreciate you really taking those steps and making something meaningful out of it. Where we started on Friday and where we ended on Friday, I thought was pretty tremendous. So thank you all for participating that way. Really, what I'm here for is an info commercial because I'm also on the committee for the Cleveland Heights Happy 5K. That's going to be on October 5th on Sunday. So I just wanted to shout out first for sponsorships. It's the last call for sponsorships. Anybody who wants to be on the back of the shirt. Love to have you on the back. Small businesses, anybody running for any position, great spot. You got over 600 shirts, great advertising. Come for the run. We got the 1 miler starting at 9:15. We got the 5K at 10 o'clock and the 10K at 10 o'clock. I don't care if you run or walk. I walk every time and it's a blast. It's a great way to see your city. And I want you to stay for the fun.
Bottom line is, we've got the street closed till 2 o'clock, so we might as well have fun on it. We've got our Dora. The Browns are playing at 9:30 in London. We've got, plenty of tables that we're going to have out there. I've got a DJ coming in at 11:30 to 1:30. We'll have plenty of kids' activities for everybody to play. So just come on out, have lunch on Lee Road, on the street, break bread with your neighbors, and start introducing yourself. Thank you.
You didn't remind them what day it was.
Did I not say that? October 5th, Sunday. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Russell. October 5th, which is a Sunday.
Location?
Good to see you there.
Location?
The location, that would be Lee Road.
Right.
That would be right between Meadowbrook and Silsby, but
At what time?
I'm sorry?
At what time?
At what time?
I'm gonna make you say everything.
Oh, well, you should definitely be there by 9 o'clock. Before then, if you haven't signed up. 9:15 if you're doing a 1 miler. 10 o'clock if you're doing a 5K. And then after that, I hope you'd stay around and you can take over and play some live music for us.
Ooh,
There you go.
an invitation.
Thank you.
All right.
Edgar Mitchell.
Good afternoon, good night, brother. I'm late getting here because I didn't know that you actually were having a council meeting tonight because of the holiday yesterday, Monday. So I didn't really check and see what's going on. I thought it wasn't, but anyway, I rode by and I saw the cars and I made it my business to get here. But I'd like to say hello to everyone here, all the Cleveland Heights residents. I'm glad to be here and glad to see all of you. I came last week, and I said I would be here every meeting. Late or not, I will be here. But anyway, the reason I had came was talking about my niece's home, which is 1062 Neela View. I live 2025 Goodnor Road. I also use that address, 1062 Neela View. I've lived on Goodnor Road in the same house since 1979. And all my kids and grandkids have gone to Heights. Right now I have a great-grandson at Heights. Anyway, I love Cleveland Heights. I'm proud to be a resident, and I try to make sure I treat people like I want to be treated. But the problem I have now is at 1062 Neela View, there was a tree that was planted there 28 years ago. My niece asked them not to plant the tree, but it has interfered, it has destroyed the clay tile pipes that's underneath the house that takes out the sanitary and the storm sewer. Take the pipes and take the water and everything out to the storm sewer. And a lot of nights, like just about every night, you could actually have the odor coming in, because anytime anybody on the street gonna flush their toilets, if the storm sewer, if the sanitary sewer is going in the pipes and the pipes are cracked, you're gonna get the vapors from the sanitary sewer. Cleveland Heights has been out there and put cameras in there and did stuff over the years, but you need to have that, somebody needs to come out, Cleveland Heights need to come out and dig that up and help replace those pipes so that can be, alleviate that problem. Now, I'm gonna have to stay in here every doggone week and talk about this until the city decides to do something about this. They always tell me you can't fight City Hall. But me, I'm the type of person, I'm gonna do the rope-a-dope and fight City Hall as long as I can. But I need your help for real, City Hall, we don't have 30,000 or 40,000 for people to come in and that's on TV and dig all that up and do what they say they're gonna do, because that costs an arm and a leg. And I know Heights is not rich, but we need some help with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I do have one more that was filled out by someone who already spoke. I just wanted to leave it up to you whether you would.
Is it short? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
One more. Page 7, Article 13, Item 14, Charter Review. Revised to require that a Charter Review Commission be appointed every 10 years to consist of 9 members, with 7 appointed by the council and 2 by the mayor, with no need for council approval, and with a provision for council to appoint 2 more if the mayor should fail to make such appointments. And I just want to know, is there a provision for the mayor to appoint additional Charter Review members if the council fails to make 7 appointments?
No, there is not. And
And the reason for that is?
there's no need to do that. There's no charter review commission unless the council creates it.
Well, this is in the revised overview, and it's called Charter Review. And it says be appointed every 10 years with 9 members.
Right. I know what it says. I'm just saying that it's purely a legislative function, putting a charter review commission together.
Okay.
And so it's reliant on the council acting. If the council doesn't act, it doesn't happen, but it is required that we do it every 10 years. I mean, if you're asking what would happen if I would ask the law director, if a council failed to appoint a charter review commission in the 10-year period, what would be I don't know if sanction's the right
They
word.
have failed to appoint 7 members.
14-day jail sentence. This comes up, that was a joke. This comes up not infrequently in living with charters that provide for periodic charter review provisions. And there is no automatic penalty. A lot of times, though, you'll hear from members of council to the folks who are maybe not ready to move forward that it's time, that you're supposed to do this, and you'll hear from the public that it's time, and you may hear from a mayor that it's time to get this moving. And it's a minimum requirement. You can have charter review commissions impaneled more frequently than that.
Right.
And
So
there is no strict date in there, like there is in some. It'll say, every 10 years beginning 2015 or something like that, Here, it's every 10 years, and so I think there's a reasonable interpretation that would say once you have one, if you have one in 3 years, then you're probably looking at another 10 years, and if you have one earlier again, so you...
yeah, my question is, what's the purpose of the statement that says if the mayor fails to make provision and then the council makes those? What is that? Why is that sentence included?
I would answer that by saying that once a city council impanels a charter review commission, they want to make sure that this is able to move forward. And, the mayor would get the chance to do it, but if they didn't do it,
Okay.
we'd still want to follow the law, which says that every 10 years,
Okay.
one has to be impaneled. I don't envision a mayor not doing this, and I don't
So
think.
is it mandatory that the council appoints the 7 and then the mayor appoints 2 after council appoints?
This just
7?
ensures that it'll get done in a so-called worst-case
I'm not
scenario.
understanding. I know.
Well, it
Well, I'm
also,
trying
though,
to-
does require...
Can you or somebody
Yeah.
answer the question?
It does
Did you want to
require
say
that it does provide that there's no requirement for council to sign off on a mayor's appointments, which you might remember was an
Right.
issue a couple years ago here. And part of the structure here was to avoid that. A mayor has the ability to appoint as of right, and the only requirement there is that it happens within, a timetable, and that was put in there pursuant to council's
My
request.
question is just if council just doesn't agree upon 7 members, what happens? That's the question.
Then they have to keep going.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor, Sarah, did you have a comment? If I may?
Well, I'll preface it really quick by saying that each voter will interpret this language probably in a variety of ways and imagine and conjecture on what the purpose is of the specific language. But I think that it is probable that you would want to avoid a situation where a mayor might even deliberately seek to obstruct the, formation of and the beginning of the work of a full contingent of charter review commissioners by simply neglecting to appoint or boycott the appointment in protest or something like that. You would want, if you are imposing this particular requirement, to avoid that possibility. And that's why I think one of the reasons why that provision for council taking on those appointments, if the mayor fails to, is included. It's right there up front. You don't have a concern about what happens if.
Okay.
And when it comes to the council's responsibility to appoint the remaining members of that Charter Review Commission, I assume that, it is the council's responsibility under the charter. I think we can easily see a circumstance where council may not all agree on all of the members of a Charter Review Commission, and so you might find yourself in a position where council has a difficult time appointing all of the members, depending on who has even applied for the position. But I suppose the expectation is that once council has the responsibility to do so, it will fulfill that responsibility and will not need for a backstop in case they don't.
All right, well, that concludes, okay, so we're on to legislation now. First readings, consideration of adoption requested. Go ahead.
I have resolution number 171-2025 on first reading. A resolution authorizing the mayor to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement and Local Transportation Improvement Programs, execute contracts as required, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Next, I have resolution 172-2025 on first reading. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Classic Chevy GMC of Madison for the acquisition of a 2024 Chevy Silverado 6500 crew cab with 11-inch SS dump for the streets division of the Department of Public Works, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 173-2025 on first reading. A resolution recognizing September 19th, 2025 as Car Free Day and Parking Day 2025 in Cleveland Heights, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Next, I have ordinance number 174-2025 on first reading. An ordinance determining to proceed with the implementation through assessment of the cost of a public service plan for Cedar Fairmount Special Improvement District, Inc., requesting that city property be included in the assessments, authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with F&C Development, Inc. to provide for payment of the assessment, levying assessments for said purpose, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. On to first readings only.
I have ordinance number 175-2025 on first reading. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a real estate purchase agreement for the sale of 46 vacant residential lots located in the city to Future Heights, Inc., and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
All right, I'm referring that to planning and development.
Next, I have ordinance number 176-2025 on first reading, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a real estate purchase agreement for the sale of 19 vacant residential lots located within the city to YRM Corp., and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
Also referred to Planning and Development Committee. Second readings?
I have ordinance number 167-2025 on second reading, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Park Landlord LLC for a commercial development loan in the sum of $1,250,000 to fund improvements to the real property located at 3300 Mayfield Road, permanent parcel numbers 684-34015, 684-34014, and 684-35025, and more commonly known as Park Synagogue Campus, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin. I have ordinance number 168-2025 on second reading. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a grant agreement with Friends of Mendelssohn in the sum of $750,000 to fund trails, walkways, sidewalks, site lighting, and landscaping improvements to the real property located at 3300 Mayfield Road. Permanent parcel number 684-34015, 684-34014, and 684-35025, and more commonly known as the Park Synagogue Campus, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin. I have ordinance number 169-2025 on second reading, an ordinance providing for the submission to the electors of the City of Cleveland Heights a proposed First Amended Charter of the City of Cleveland Heights, and declaring the necessity of this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure introduced by Council President Kuda, Council Vice President Russell, Council Members Larson, Posh, and Cobb.
All right. Does anyone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Do we have
Second.
We have a second, all right. Any discussion? Councilman Posh? And then Councilman Maddox?
I believe these proposed amendments to our city charter will end the state of government dysfunction we see ourselves in today. These proposed amendments do not reduce the power of our mayor, rather they set some expectations that are commonplace in other cities that are lacking in Cleveland Heights. We have our Charter Review Commission to thank for bringing this forward to council. The commission had representatives from both the council and the mayor, and I thank them for their work. What we're voting on today is a document that we'll be bringing forward to the voters. The people deciding to change the charter will be our voters, not council. Assuming we approve putting this on the ballot tonight, we have 2 months of work to educate our citizens on what these changes mean to our city and why they're needed. And I'm looking forward to that work. But there is something missing, and that's the ranked choice voting. This is not included in this batch of proposed charter amendment. Ranked choice voting is important, but not as urgently important as the proposed charter amendment ballot measure that we're hopefully approving today. I want to state publicly my support for ranked choice voting, and I would like to see council bring that forward in early 2026 for an up and down vote by our citizens in the spring.
Thank you, Councilman Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. President. I won't keep us. I think the public knows at this point that I disagree with the process, the community engagement behind this. I think that we need to separate these out and give the public more time to give us feedback. And for those reasons, I'll be voting no on this. I do believe that there are important changes that need to be made to this charter. I just absolutely believe that we need to give our public more time to absorb those changes and ask questions. I feel like the process itself was rushed in terms of the community engagement. I feel like the process that we went through last week was extremely performative. The public had just gotten that final draft and we were still making changes. And as we saw tonight during the comments, people were still asking questions today. This is a heavy lift to get the community to really understand this. And so I want to say this to the community. I hope that you hold this entire council accountable for making sure that robust, honest, and open, transparent community engagement actually happens around these charter changes. You have heard this council say in committee of the whole that they were open to it. That is not enough. I expect you to put pressure on this council to give you dates, times, and locations, to lean into this process to make sure that all voters understand this, not just in one neighborhood, but in every neighborhood. And if they can't do that, then they are doing exactly what I told you they are, ramming this down your throat. And so I hope that you put pressure on them to make sure that you understand this, that they engage with you, and don't simply tell you that this is an emergency and has to happen. All of this does not have to happen right now. This could have been broken up. We could have done the things that were necessary right now and given this public the time to really absorb this. And so again, I'm voting no. Changes are necessary, but not this way. This council has done everything possible to improve community engagement, and I feel like this is going backwards. I've heard from hundreds of people and over even my class reunion this weekend asking what the heck is going on with this? What is this document? And how we're expected to take a look at this and really absorb it within 2 months. And so I strongly disagree that there was any engagement process around this last week. And I'm hoping again that the public holds this council accountable. And I'm asking my colleagues to stick to your word. I expect you to actually show up, talk to our residents, and get that feedback. Not just tell them to send you emails, but get in their face and explain this to them. If you're going to rush this, I think you have a responsibility to make sure that our residents understand it. And so I'm going to be watching to see who shows up to these meetings, these in-person meetings that we should be having over the next 2 months to engage our residents. And if you can't invest in that, you shouldn't be voting on this tonight. Thank you.
All right, Councilwoman Larson.
Thank you, President Kuda. I have participated in all of the recorded public charter review work sessions that Council held. I'm vested in the charter revisions that the hardworking Charter Review Commission provided for Council. The meetings of the Charter Review Commission were all recorded and are all available on the city's YouTube channel. The Law Department, specifically Bill Hanna and his staff, have been there every step of the way. Voters will have a good opportunity to study this document before the November election, beginning with the League of Women Voters Forum on September 17th. I will be there to answer any questions that people have. Law Director Hannah has provided an excellent summary of the revisions to the original charter that are included in the document we are voting on tonight. That summary is included in our packet for this meeting. I'm always available for anyone who wants to discuss your questions and how we got here. My phone number is 253-691-2714. My email is glarson@clevelandheights.gov. And these numbers, this information is on the city website. I believe the Cleveland Heights Charter that should be in place January 1st, 2026 is one that aligns with the new form of government and provides updates where necessary. I will support this legislation to move the amended charter forward to the November ballot rather than asking the 2026 council members to repeat this work. The new mayor and new council in 2026 will have a roadmap that more appropriately balances powers between executive and legislative branches if these charter amendments are approved by you, the voter. Thank you.
Councilman Cobb?
I think that we will never agree on what is a perfect charter, and it is not up to the city council to determine what is a perfect charter. That is for the voters to decide, and this legislation simply puts it in front of the voters to make a decision as to whether they want to pass this amended charter or not. For going on almost 4 years now, this government has operated under a charter that was designed for a city manager form of government. It is not designed for our current form of government, and this charter now, this proposed charter now aligns with the new form of government that we have. If we do not put this on the ballot for November, I do not believe that it will get on the ballot until next November, because we will have to get it to the Board of Elections by March 2nd of next year. I just don't think that that's going to happen, given all of the work that will need to be done in the first few months of next year, and also given the fact that we will have some changes on city council, and they may have a different view on what should be on the ballot. So it's time to stop kicking the can down the road and give the residents of the city the opportunity to vote up or down on this charter. And if they feel that it's been rushed or they don't like the provisions in it, then they will vote no. I believe that most of our residents are going to be going to the polls anyway on November in November to vote on this, so we're not putting a burden on them. Also, online is not only the summary that Councilwoman Larson mentioned ago, but the Charter Review Commission has a report that it breaks down this charter and the changes and the reasons for it in a more understandable form, because there is a lot of legal lesson in this charter. It's a legal document. So I would urge the voters to go read that. And as Councilman Larson indicated, I too am available to answer any questions that anyone has about these charter provisions. And I'm willing to have as many meetings as necessary to try to educate the voters. And I hope that we'll have some voters that will turn out to learn about these changes before they actually vote on it. That's all I have.
Anybody else? All right.
Mr. President?
Oh, yeah.
Just for clarity, so has this council agreed to actually host these meetings? Because I've heard phone numbers and emails, and that's not what we stated over there. Are we going to schedule actual meetings for this with hearings to make sure that we're engaging with the public? That's what I was told. That's what I want to happen.
I'm saying enthusiastically yes. I
would like to hear that from the rest of my colleagues, because if we're not going to do that, I feel the public needs to know right now.
Right. No, I'm glad with.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. President, when will we be scheduling those meetings and holding that discussion? Will it be at the end of this meeting during new business or our next meeting? I want to make sure those are on the books. If we're going to pass this tonight,
let's bring it up in new business. I think that's appropriate.
Awesome. Thank you.
Did you want to say something?
No.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Raise your hand.
Yes, I just want to say that, as I said before, I think that the Charter Review Commission did a wonderful job. I think the work that's been put in is very telling, but I also believe that this is too large of a document to put on the ballot as is. It needs to be broken up. I said before, when I was on the county Charter Review Commission, when they changed the form of government, we had a lot of revisions, but we did not put it all on the ballot at one time. It needs to be put on in parts and pieces so people can digest it and understand it. Even if you have meetings and residents have additional suggestions for that, it cannot be changed. It's going to go on the ballot as is. As people hear noted changes, we were able to put those changes in. That opportunity will be lost, so no one else will be able to add to it or subtract to what is put on the ballot. So to me, I am looking for more public engagement because it is a document that is the Constitution of our city. And I think all residents of the city should have an opportunity to engage as long as the Charter Review, as it took the Charter Review Commission to put it together, as well as it took the council to add their changes or subtract their changes. For example, we have a Charter Review Commission that put together the document, and there is no separation in what was added for council. So you look at it to say that the document was all done by the Charter Review Commission, but in actuality, they did do that, but there were some additional changes or subtractions that council put in. And so you're not real clear on who did what change in the documentation. And you need to know why council might have did those changes and what was the explanation for that. So I'm just about community engagement, taking our time, making sure we get it right. It may be some things that we can put on the ballot ASAP. But I think this document is too big and too large, and I don't know any other city that has taken a Charter Review Commission and put it all 42 pages on at one time. I think we are actually going to lose the voters for them to vote no on it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, the founders, they started off with a more perfect union. I mean, that's an admonition that it isn't perfect, it's not gonna be perfect, but we're certainly trying to make it better. And I do believe this is a more perfect charter. The charter review process, again, was started over 2.5 years ago. It really began in 2017 with a Charter Review Commission. And, I went to at least a dozen of those meetings. Councilman Cobb was on that charter review. And, not that many people showed up. I hope that the community is more engaged in this charter because this is a very, very good document. These changes will put in place the checks and balances that were missing in the old charter that was designed for a city manager form of government. Many thanks to the Charter Review Commission, the Law Department, and the hundreds of residents who either attended or viewed the dozens and dozens of public meetings over the past 2 years. And I wholeheartedly support these changes. Council decided not to include some provisions last week that I think the electorate will appreciate. There absolutely is no power grab at all. Almost all of these proposed amendments are commonly found in many, many other suburban charters. This amended charter is the first overhaul of our charter in over 40 years, and I'm glad Lee Chilcote is here I spoke to that tonight, and also about the single subject rule in the Ohio Revised Code that prevented the Citizens for an Elected Mayor from doing anything more than just fixing one amendment in the charter, changing our form of government from city manager to elected mayor. The voters, not council, get to decide the amendments if the amendments meet their standards. So I'm comfortable with that. There will be several opportunities between now and November 4th for our residents to educate themselves on the details. The first one is Wednesday, September 17th at 6 p.m. at the Community Center, and that will be held by the League of Women Voters And I'm pledging to you that we will create several other opportunities. The charter is a very interactive document. It would be almost irresponsible to break it up into pieces and allow for the possibility of a lot of incongruity in the charter. Only in cases of extremely controversial documents or amendments should a charter be separated out. And I can tell you the county put stuff on the ballot year after year after year after year. We're already 6 years into this. I don't think that's what we need to do. The members of this council are your representatives, but so we did our due diligence on this, but you get the last word. And I hope you'll take advantage of that. I think we've had really good, lively debates, some at the Charter Review Commission meetings, some at the meetings that council held between winter of last year and April. I believe we finished most of our work on April 15th. I know the law department, you just heard, the law department completely overwhelmed, did the best they could to get get us the charter language in as timely a manner as they could, and I thank them for that. And I will be supporting this amendment. Addie, please call the roll.
Cobb.
Aye.
Kuda.
Yes.
Larson. Aye. Maddox.
No.
Russell.
No.
Petrus.
Aye.
Posh.
Yes.
All right, that amendment passes. I'm sorry, that legislation passes. And now we're on to committee reports. Anybody have a committee report?
Well, I know legislation was moved to my committee, and I guess I need to ask Mr. Cobb and President Kuda, are you all available for a Thursday meeting this week?
What time?
After we meet with Bill Hanna?
I will not be able to do Thursday. And here's the thing, when we have I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak off mic. When we, on a holiday week, we don't meet on Thursday with the law director.
I'm going to meet with the law director. So,
Well, I'm not.
Mr. Cobb, are you available?
I could in the afternoon.
Okay. I thought you were available in the morning.
No, I'm not.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, so I'll get with you all about a updated meeting for the two resolutions ordinance that needs to go to committee. How soon do we need those?
Well, reasonably, we'd like to have that before the 15th, but I would suggest you could do it any day the following week as well.
Okay, I'll check with my calendar.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other committee reports? All right, we're on to old business. Now we're on to new business.
President, in terms of old business, I know I brought up the fact that we still need some type of rules or regulations around behavior in council chambers. We've had multiple incidents now to discuss this, so this is something I would like to bring up the next committee of the whole. If you want, I can bring some in that other cities are using, but we need to have some type of parameters around here in terms of respect and in terms of making sure that everyone is safe, including council members when they walk into this chambers. And so I'm open to having that discussion. If council members aren't interested in that, I'm more than happy to take that feedback now. But if not, I would like us to have that conversation at the next committee of the whole.
I am interested in that. And one of the things I did ask about, council's authority to do something like that. So I think we need, when we do this, because I think we should, we certainly would need the law director there, because I want to make sure that, because I think there are questions of decorum, and there are also legal questions as well. Anybody else have an objection to that conversation taking place? So committee of the whole, September 15th. All right, very good. That was old business, new business. Councilman Maddox, you wanted to I don't know that we could set up dates right now, but I'm sorry, you go ahead.
No, I'm just asking what that might look like, what the council is open to, so that we can get that to the public. How would those be scheduled? What do we anticipate? Are they hearings? Are we open to doing them in more than one location? Are council members open to that? I'm just, again, this is something that I thought we should have done before that. We just passed it, and so I'm really looking to see what people are open to, because this is really on the rest of this council to make this work if you're committed to this. I'll show up wherever we need to. I don't have a problem even advertising it, but I need to know what this council is willing to invest in.
So I asked the law director some time ago if we were to have meetings outside of council chambers, what are the requirements for recording the meeting? And I don't necessarily mean video, but some type of transcript or, well, first of all, can we do that? And second of all, offsite. And I'm assuming the answer is yes. If that's the case, what legal requirements will we have? I mean, I know we have to notice the meeting and so forth.
You can meet in other locations within the city that are public locations. So that's the limitation on where you can meet.
So a school,
you meet at a restaurant, you can't meet,
right?
That kind of a thing.
Community center, a school.
And I believe, hang on a moment. Yes, school, library, those kind of places would qualify.
Addie, why don't we start doing some doodle polls? And I would suggest, since the League of Women Voters one is coming up on the 17th, that we maybe, go after that and give people, I don't want to interfere with, with their, I don't want to upstage their event. Any other suggestions? And I know there's a cost to libraries, but I don't think I think it's nominal. Yes.
I think that it would be helpful if there were an overview provided to folks. So for example, the Charter Review Commission had 2 public meetings where they provided an overview and took questions. I thought that format was particularly effective. So if we were able to do something similar, possibly with the law director or another member of the law department, and maybe even members of the former Charter Review Commission, I think that would be helpful to the public.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
I'm fine with that as long as it's transparent. What I don't want is a charter review infomercial coming from charter review members who keep coming in here selling the same thing. I want to make sure that our residents can actually ask the questions they want to, and they're not going to be disrespected when they do so or dismissed because we've been discussing it. So as long as that's fine, but I'm not looking to hear a presentation from members of the charter review or anyone else, and then the public is sitting there waiting for 15, 20 minutes to get that feedback. And so we need to find a way to make sure that this community engagement is engagement and not a presentation. I cannot state that enough.
Questions and concerns, definitely. That's what it should be. Yeah, go ahead.
I think you really do have to have a presentation beforehand, not an infomercial, but what the changes are, and then have a lengthy question and answer period.
Go ahead, Councilman. Did you want to say? Okay, all right. All right, so we'll start putting some dates together, yes.
I would just suggest that maybe if the law director were willing, that he lead these discussions. Aside from Councilman Cobb, none of us are lawyers. He and his office have spent a lot of time reviewing the changes and preparing them for us. And so that's just a suggestion that I would make if he were interested and willing to do it.
We can certainly help. I'm not sure if people want to listen to me for an hour or however long it takes, but I think that public input is important in every situation. In this case, I think responding to questions from the public is probably even more important because the language that's in the proposed charter that you're sending to the voters to consider is not going to change as a result of any of these discussions. It's more a question of people understanding what is there,
exactly.
Deciding how they feel about it, why it's there, those kinds of things. So yeah, we
exactly.
can help with that.
So that just goes back to my point. I'm hearing that it would be helpful to have them there and present again. This is about hearing from the residents. Let's put it out there. I don't mind doing a 5 or 10 minute something, but after that, we need to make sure that we're getting that feedback and we're not going to go back and forth. I want an actual public hearing that gets this feedback because I'm going to make sure my staff is already, because we were anticipating this, sending this out to residents all over. Some of you already know it'll be on my social media by tomorrow. I'm going Facebook Live tomorrow, talk over 1,000 people about this, and I'm going to let them know I have concerns. And so I just need you all to prepare for any questions that are coming in here, because I'm going to be preparing the residents who elected me to ask those questions of you. And so I don't want a presentation. I want you to be able to hear that feedback and be able to come with some accountable answers. That's all I'm stating, because this is a lot. And if it looks like I'm being intense, I am, because I do not like rushed community engagement. I've made that clear. And so I do not want a presentation. We are going to hear the public's voice. So as long as whatever we create allows us to walk away from hearing that feedback without us mixing anything else into it, I'm completely fine about that. But I want to make sure that we've done that. We've done it in multiple locations, and we've gotten a diverse level of feedback and questions. And I would love it if it's recorded like we did ARPA. That way it's all transparent.
The purpose, I think, of having the law director there is that some of the questions could be legal in nature or have to do with legal interpretations that would be best handled by the law director. All right, so any other new business? In that case, we'll move on to council member comments. All right, no council member, I guess we made them. All right, you know what, I think I'll follow suit, and I think we've said it all. This meeting is adjourned at 9:10 p.m. Thank you.